The world witnessed the biggest protest here in Hong Kong in decades, and yet the top leader here in the city, Carrie Lam, is defiant and defending the extradition bill. Tell us how.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Christy. I mean, if Sunday was a day of action, a historic day of protest, well, it was really all eyes turning to the government here on Monday. How would the Hong Kong government, led by Carrie Lam, respond after what we saw on Sunday? And if you thought that Carrie Lam might be changing her position as a result of what we saw on Sunday, well, she made it quite clear today that that's not the case. Hundreds of thousands of people out on the streets proves democracy is in good hands. Hong Kong's leader claimed on Monday.
Rights and freedoms of individuals, of journalists, etc., are fully protected.
But Carrie Lam waved away the concerns of this vast group of people, more than 1 million, organizers say, who fear that her government's legislation to allow extradition to China would undermine the rule of law here.
This bill is not initiated by the Central People's Government. I have not received any instruction or mandate from Beijing.
Please save my daughter was the message from this man who brought his child to Sunday's mass demonstration. Protest organizers say the idea of being put on trial in the mainland would silence Beijing's critics in what is now China's freest city.
There is no fair trial. There is no humane punishment guarantees on the mainland.
Protests still taking place. Christy, talk to us about this issue that has galvanized so many people in Hong Kong.
Rick, the protest is still taking place. It is culminating here on the map, the geographical endpoint of today's march, the Legislative Council building. And imagine, this march took place. It kicked off in Victoria Park about 7 hours ago. There are people still arriving, people still gathering here. Just represents the amount of anger that there is. Now, according to the numbers, Hong Kong police estimate that about 240,000 people took part in this protest. Organizers claim that 1 million people plus took part in today's march. As evidence, and you saw that sweeping aerial video, this international city, this international financial hub being brought to a literal standstill earlier today because of the sweeping size of today's protest. Now, at issue here is this controversial extradition bill that would allow the extradition of suspected criminals into additional jurisdictions. Now, the Hong Kong government says it's necessary to cover up a legal loophole that exists. But you talk to the protesters here, and many critics of the bill, they don't buy it. They say that this extradition bill, if passed, it would allow the extradition of critics of Beijing into China, and once there, they would not be allowed to have a free or fair trial. Now, the protests today, although very massive in scope, have been relatively peaceful. Police, they have announced the arrest of at least 7 individuals. Pepper spray was used on a small group of protesters earlier today. And again, bringing us back to the destination of today's protest, the Hong Kong Legislative Council building. Later this week, on Wednesday, June 12th, that is when Hong Kong lawmakers will again review this highly controversial piece of legislation. The organizers of this march hope that today's march will be able to somehow convince them to table the bill. We have to wait and see if that happens. But what is definitely true is the result of today's protest march, the sheer scale of that. Hong Kong police saying 240,000 people took part. Organizers saying more than 1 million people took part. This was an event that surely captured the world's attention.